Hey guys, tonight we're drifting down moonlit rivers where history's first paper fluttered into existence, centuries before your grocery lists hit recycled pulp. Picture yourself knee-deep in a Tang dynasty stream, fishing silk scraps from murky water, because apparently even 8th century wardrobes had commitment issues. The kicker: you'd last 2 minutes here without Wi-Fi. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and current time. I'll shout out the most chaotic time zone later. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your sandals squelch through river mud, the stench of rotting mulberry bark clogging your throat. Eunuchs wade upstream, their embroidered robes snagging on rocks. One bends to retrieve a sodden scrap, the imperial red dye bleeding into his palms. Cease that image. Think less Netflix costume drama, more office intern botching a print job. That torn silk becomes everything. Historians agree Kai Lun formalized papermaking around 105 CE. But Tang whispers swear some poor sap's laundry disaster kicked it off. You kneel beside a vat of hemp mush, fingers sinking into lukewarm sludge. It clings like regret, the kind your barista radiates when you order oat milk at 8 a.m. Now for the conspiracy spice. Local legends claim the eunuch's name got erased from records because he borrowed imperial linen to impress his secret lover. No proof exists, just court journals mentioning disciplinary actions involving textile redistribution. Your paddle stirs the fibrous soup each rotation, stretching strands thinner than a politician's campaign promises. The real magic: they added fishnets, crumbled dragnets from Pearl River fishers, boiled into a gelatinous goop that binds fibers. You skim the vat's surface, pulling up a trembling sheet that ripples like dragon scales. Traditionalists called it blasphemy. Proper writing surfaces should crackle, not sigh. Historians still argue whether the formula was stolen or stumbled upon a spilled wine flask, altering viscosity, maybe. Your thumbnail tests the half-dry sheet. It creases clean. No quill snags here. Just smooth strokes preserving tax records and bad poetry. Wind carries the sour tang of fermenting bark from nearby pits. Workers layer bamboo mats like lasagna, each sheet destined for imperial decrees or dumpling wrappers. One apprentice sneezes into the batch, his snotty contribution immortalized in a Buddhist scroll. Dusk bleeds across drying fields. You press a finished sheet to your cheek. It breathes like skin. In a world of chiseled stone and heavy parchment, this feels like cheating. Too light, too fragile, too alive. Tomorrow's sandstorm will erase this valley. But tonight, you've cradled the blueprint for every birthday card, ransom note, and parking ticket humanity will ever craft. You smell Samarkand before you see it, hot copper, and crushed anise steaming from night market stalls. The 8th century bazaar never sleeps. Even as merchants fold their carpets, whispers of paper-making crackle, like kindling in hidden courtyards. Your sandals stick to cobblestones, where Arab alchemists once paced, their linen sleeves rolled up, ink-stained fingers clutching stolen Tang dynasty scrolls. Moonlight spills through a latticed window as you crouch beside a replica vat. Imagine the original built from repurposed siege engine parts, its belly full of mulberry mash and river sludge. Historical records confirm it here. In 751 CE, Chinese prisoners of war shared paper-making methods after the Battle of Talas. But tonight, in this reek of fermenting hemp, you're watching 2 ex-soldiers turned lab partners argue over starlight. Not enough serious in the pulp, hisses the taller one, his scarred hands dunking a reed screen into murky water. His companion, a former swordsman with restless eyes, stirs the sludge with a repurposed spear shaft. You promised Babylonian star charts would thicken the fibers. They're obsessed with celestial ingredients, every culture's quirk. Tin pots glint on shelves, holding stolen moonlight, melted lead, and midnight zephyrs. Goat bladder balloons. You lean closer. The mixture releases a vinegar-sharp sigh and recognize the real innovation. Those Chinese captives. They'd memorized the recipe for hu paper, its fibers beaten thin as cicada wings. A splash makes you jump. The spearman's screen lifts a gossamer sheet, translucent as a serpent's discarded skin. He exhales, Arabic curses softening to reverence as moonlight bleeds through the damp membrane. This, historians agree, is the birth of Kagaz, the progenitor of every grocery list and breakup note you'll ever scribble. But here's the twist those leather-bound scholars miss. The alchemists added actual starlight, or tried to. Crushed desert beetles, their bioluminescent bellies dried and powdered, swirl in the vat like drowned constellations. Your fingertip skims the wet sheet, sparkless. The beetles lost their glow centuries ago, leaving only the myth and a faint peppery scent that'll have medieval scribes sneezing into their inkwells. Voices clash outside, the clatter of steel. Pulp drips as the pair freeze. Through cracks in the mud brick wall, you glimpse Abbasid soldiers inspecting a spice caravan. Papermaking's a state secret now, punishable by, well, let's just say they're not handing out fines. Your hosts crouch, sludge oozing between their toes, as looted Tang armor trembles in the shadows. The danger passes, camel bells fading into the muezzin's pre-dawn call. Now the real work begins. Layer slurry press sheets, dry them on heated stones. You mimic their motions, soaking reed mats in vats that smell like a pond's forgotten depths. The fibers knit tighter with each dip, an alchemy of patience and panic. One stubborn lump refuses to smooth. The spearman stabs it, his blade tip carving accidental patterns. Later, scholars will find these watermarks and invent conspiracy theories about Sufi mystics. But tonight, it's just a man cursing his shaky hands, his war-trained muscles struggling to massage pulp instead of enemies. Dawn stains the sheet's gold. You press a palm to the driest page, still warm from the stones, and feel time split. To your left, the Tang prisoners grind mulberry bark, their knowledge spilling into Persian dictionaries. To your right, a millennium of scrolls, novels, diplomatic treaties, all trembling in this half-dried leaf. Historians still argue whether those first Samarkand sheets used hemp or mulberry, but touch this rasping surface, its ridges like braille from a dead man's journal, and you'll swear it's made of something stranger. Half rebellion, half surrender, fibers warring in the slurry until they forget which empire claimed them first. The alchemist suddenly grins, holding his sheet to the rising sun. For a heartbeat through pulp and imperfections, you see it. The shadow of a Chinese water wheel, rebuilt in Arabic geometry, spinning tailies neither culture could have written alone. The page buckles as it dries, its edges warping westward, already dreaming of Phoenician presses and university libraries. Your fingers come away dusty. Centuries have reduced these vats to baked mud fragments displayed under museum glass. But breathe deep past the gift shop essential oils and catch that persistent tang. Part fermenting hemp, part desperation, part the metallic aftertaste of history bending. Somewhere, a bioluminescent beetle flickers in the darkness, its belly full of stolen light. You kneel beside a kiln's dying, embers your shadow, merging with charcoal-smudged monks, shuffling past. Midnight's chill nips at their hemp robes, yet sweat glistens where furnace heat clings to skin. The air tastes of burnt honey, a byproduct of boiling bark, resin too long. 3 failed batches steam in the corner, their rejected pulp sinking into ash like sinners into quicksand. Brother Wu mutters ratios under his breath, his calloused thumb measuring bark strips against his forearm. Lotus root fibers for flexibility, honeysuckle sap for sheen. His voice hitches as another sheet disintegrates in the vat. Tang dynasty records insist on 16 layers for royal documents, but tonight's experiments hover between 8 and disaster. You mimic his frown, dipping a bamboo screen into slurry that smells like overcooked oats. A novice bumps your elbow, his cauldron sloshing murky water across the stone floor. Protect the edges. Snaps an elder, pointing to sheets warping like dried squid. They'll spend tomorrow's dawn prayers, salvaging scraps. Ironic for men who preach detachment from material things. Watch them now, robes hiked up, kneeling in puddles, fingernails digging for intact corners. The mistake happens during Scorpio's zenith. Young Brother Lin yawns mid-stir, his bamboo paddle slowing to a stop. Moonlight solidifies the mixture into a gelatinous mass, thicker than a prince's amphora wine. Panicked, he stabs the glob, splattering sludge across his sandal. Hours later, they peel a sheet so dense it could stop an arrow. Historians still debate whether that accident spawned durable scripture parchment, or if some quick-thinking monk spun the tale to avoid punishment. You trace the dried sheet's surface, ridges, catching your fingerprint like tree rings. Modern labs would call it an overbeaten cellulose matrix. But here, it's divine intervention, served with a side of human error. 3 sneezes in succession, holy trinity of mucus, and Brother Lynn's latest batch curdles into moldy cheese. The others tease him, claiming his sinuses house angry paper-making spirits. Secretly, they're grateful. Those gelatinous sheets, perfect for inking mantras in the rain, a niche market for monsoon season pilgrims. Dawn approaches its light, revealing what midnight concealed. That botched, thick parchment. It's already pressed beneath Buddha statuettes, flattening into something usable. The abbot inspects it, sniffing, before declaring it humbly adequate. You stifle a laugh, monastic understatement at its finest, as if they hadn't just revolutionized bookbinding. Your fingers find a half-buried scrap, its fibers fused by negligence into accidental armor. Somewhere centuries hence, this mishap will cradle the Diamond Sutra in a British library vault. But tonight, it's just a rookie's embarrassment, soaked through with donkey urine bleach and desperate prayers. The kiln exhales its last warmth as monks retreat for lauds. Only Brother Wu remains, tossing failed sheets into the fire. Flames lick a rejected page, its edges curling into lotus petals before blackening. Neither of you mention how closely the ash resembles monastic funeral rites, how every burnpult clears space for whatever comes next. Morning finds you ankle-deep in discarded rope, hemp strands coiled like drowsy snakes around the vat's legs. Camel drivers toss their frayed cords into the barter pile, jokes about retired nooses bouncing off courtyard walls. Their laughter dies when they spot the head papermaker, a nun who converts their cast-offs into gold filigreed stationery, cheaper than burning dung for fuel, she explains, rough hands separating fibers as you mimic her motions. 10th century ledgers confirm hemp's role, but none mention the blisters. Your fingertips split open, nettle salve soaking into cracks, while fibers cling like jealous lovers. Historians still argue whether hemp entered papermaking by accident or through some forgotten pact between weavers and wordsmiths. The real secret: rotting. You gag through your 3rd day of stewing hemp in brackish water, swampy stench, flattening even the monastery's crows against the sky. Brother Tang swears it's faster than sun bleaching, but his assertion wilts when a novice faints into the vat. They fish him out, his robes dripping what you'll forever call essence of despair. Samarkand's rope makers visit at noon, clinking clay tokens for trade. Their leader winks, producing a necklace of braided hemp-dyed indigo, strong enough to strangle a Tajik stallion or cradle a baby's neck. The joke lands like a dropped anvil until someone coughs, camel driver's wife, under their breath. Laughter erupts, raw and relieved, as you pocket the necklace for later study. Pulp sticks to every surface now, your sandals leaving fibrous tread marks across the scriptorium. A visiting merchant mistakes them for sacred patterns, offering silver coins to replicate the devotional footprints. You don't correct him. Let the workshop's floor grime become tomorrow's pilgrimage route. By dusk, the mash transforms. What began as maritime-grade rope softens into slurry, its strands dissolving like sugar in tea. You plunge both hands in expecting coarseness, but meet something akin to frogskin silk. The nun nods, her smile cracking sunburnt lips. Ruin a man's trade, improve his scriptures. Someone's child sent to fetch dinner squeals at the mush between your fingers. She retreats, convinced you're skinning albino salamanders. Her mother apologizes with fig cakes, their sweetness barely masking the hemp's afterlife reek. You eat 3 anyway. Disgust fuels innovation, or at least poor dietary choices. Nightfall brings the pressing. Stone blocks lower onto fresh sheets, their weight squeezing out failures along with water. A monk hums while tightening the screws, an old rope maker's shanty about lost loves and gained calluses. Your sleeve snags on a hemp strand, the fiber resisting even now, giving up its strength grudgingly. The unveiled sheet glows under torchlight, its surface smoother than a mirror-polished scimitar. You touch what was once rigging for spice caravans, now silent under mathematical proofs. That stubborn merchant returns, his sniff of approval fogging the page. No smudges, he murmurs, already calculating resale value. Before leaving, you kneel where the rope pile stood. Grit embeds itself in your kneecaps, a final reminder of the trade's true cost. Woven into every folio, the ghostly ache of blistered hands, salvage yard, bargaining, moonlit vats of reeking potential. Centuries later, historians will debate the ethics of repurposing tools into texts. But tonight, you rub a finished sheet between thumb and forefinger, its whisper softer than a rope maker's abandoned dreams. Somewhere beyond these walls, a camel driver curses the missing necklace, unaware his frustration has become the binding for tomorrow's psalms. Your boots crunch through salt-crusted mud, where the oasis once breathed, each step releasing the ghosts of evaporated springs. Locals claim the well dried up overnight, a punishment for selling paper to infidel mapmakers. You're here to disprove that, digging through centuries of silt with a trowel forged from repurposed forging hammerheads. The first scrap emerges at forearm's depth, papyrus petrified into a clay tablet's cousin. Its indigo symbols swim beneath your fingernail scrutiny, arrows twisting into serpents under the noon glare. Experts confirmed last decade that Byzantine traders stockpiled papyrus here, but none predicted directions to older water sources. A laborer shouts, his shovel striking something fibrous. The crew converges, unearthing a reed basket lined with more paper. Historians still argue whether these were real maps or clever forgeries to inflate caravan fees. You unroll a fragment, sniffing the ink. Pomegranate tannin, same as your workshop uses, but cut with something acrid. Donkey urine, coughs the site's eldest digger, preservative trick from the Alexandria days. He winks, revealing 3 teeth and a lifetime of dubious wisdom. His grandson later confides, "The old man's never been closer to Egypt than a spice merchant's tall tale." Sunset stains the scraps blood orange, exposing hidden details. Faint circles connected by dashes, maybe wells, maybe wishing star constellations. Your canteen's last drip smudges a line, reanimating what might be dune formations or a lover's stretch marks. The team debates over cold lentils, tracing roots with grease-stained fingers. That night, you copy the symbols onto fresh hemp paper. The ink bleeds modern fibers, rejecting ancient recipes. Frustration mounts until you mimic the backward script of left-handed scribes, strokes flowing upward like inverted rainfall. By dawn, you've resurrected a route to nowhere or everywhere. A sandstorm erases your trenches. By noon, the well's secrets reburied. As winds howl through camp, you press the original fragments between glass. Their resonance hums through your palms, a vibration older than the Silk Road's first whisper. Somewhere beneath your cot, scorpions drag stolen papyrus scraps into the dark, unknowing archivists of a twice-lost odyssey. The sting of last night's sand still grinds between your molars as merchants reload their camels, sniffing spice sacks to mask paper's telltale musk. You recognize the trick. Silk Road tax collectors taxed by the scroll, not by weight or scent. A jasmine-scented bundle parts, revealing creamy sheets, folded 9 times to mimic lotus petals. Your guide muffles camel bells with felt pads. Taxmen hear brass a league off. Historians still argue whether shifted ink mountains on smuggled maps were navigation aids or water-damaged accidents. You pocket a cinnamon-dusted scrap, its inked peaks warped into what could be dunes, or a sleeping dragon's spine. Moonlight exposes a caravan master's ledger columns of towns erased by drought or conquest. He claims its inventory, yet the numbers align with abandoned oasis mile markers. You cough pointedly. He slams the book, copper inkwell rolling into shadows. Later, you find it lodged in a sack of Sichuan peppercorns, still warm. A junior trader slips, spilling saffron threads across hidden paper rolls. The crew freezes, waiting for shouted curses. Instead, the master barks laughter. Now we'll sell yellowed antiques at double price. His apprentices sprint to contaminate more stock, grinning like festival pranksters. You hitch a ride on a baggage camel, its gait smoother than the emperor's palanquin, allegedly. Between swaying spice racks, a map unfurls itself. The indigo Nile deltas twisted into a looping knot, Persian Gulf, reshaped like a crescent moon pastry. Scholars confirmed that Abbasid mapmakers exaggerated distances to INFL, a T, E Chinese letter fees. But this feels artistic. Dawn leaks across the desert, threatening exposure. The master kicks sand over his wares. Sunlight's a snitch. You help rebury a chest of paper under salt flats, its fake 2nd century, seals already cracking. The forger had used yak glue instead of traditional horsehoof resin. A lapse future archaeologists will dissect for decades. As the caravan merges with horizon, haze, you unroll their gift map. The ink stirs, mountains migrating westward under your breath's humidity. By midday heat, the Indus Valley has swallowed Cobble's peaks. You recrease it carefully. This living sea, a RTOGR, a PHY, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, folded in darkness, where borders stay deliciously fluid. Your knuckles brush against bundled contracts in the saddlebag, each marriage vow sandwiched between camel hair blankets. The glue binding these peace treaties smells suspiciously like horse sweat, because it is. Sogdian kids spent yesterday boiling discarded hooves into jelly, their laughter echoing off clay walls as bubbles popped like miniature avalanches. A sheaf slips free, the bottom third soaked in fermented mare's milk. You try separating pages. They tear like overcooked noodles. Historians documented how Central Asian trading posts standardized legal scripts. Less so about toddlers chewing undried sheets into papier-mâché toys. 3 contract fragments still bear bite marks, tiny molars fossilized in the margins. You enter a low-ceilinged scriptorium where apprentices lettering vows pause, their reed pens hovering like hunting hawks. A 14-year-old inks symbols for prosperity and drought-resistant goats, standard clauses for merging feuding clans. Her quill hesitates at child custody. No word exists for divorced parents in this valley. She invents one using Turkic horsebreeding terms. The trading post chief inspects her work, sniffing. This glue's too fresh. The ink'll blur before they reach Bukhara. He storms off to yell at the hoof boilers. You pocket a rejected sheet. It's horse fat, adhesive, already attracting thirsty flies. Critics still debate whether smudged marriage terms caused 3 interclan wars or prevented 7 others. Nightfall brings a hush broken by mortar and pestle rhythms. Scribes grind lapis lazuli to highlight a warlord's title. Moonlight reveals a hidden joke. A junior scribe's sketched donkey ears on the verbose groom's portrait. His colleague smothers giggles, adding a flamboyant mustache with extra indigo. The forgery's convincing enough, unless Parliament ever examines it under magnification. Dawn's first light catches you deciphering a contract's encrypted addendum. Price adjustments coded in Uyghur sheep-counting rhymes. 14 verses later, you realize it's just a recipe for mutton dumplings. The scribe winces. Our cipher master got hungry mid-session. He offers apricot slices as reparations, their sweetness. A LMOST, Chinese letter, the sting of gullibility. By noon, you're drafting duplicates. 4 copies required for trades, crossing more than 3 mountain passes. A teething baby gums discarded scraps, imprinting their first contract with drool and barley mush. Their mother chuckles. Better terms than my marriage agreement. She doesn't specify whether she means the diplomacy or the paperwork. You wake before dawn to donkey brays. The paper yard's stone weights chill against your palm. Women gather around stacked sheets, still damp from last night's pressing, their calloused hands testing fiber alignment. They murmur a work song older than Charlemagne's empire. Or maybe it's a popular tavern tune with cleaner lyrics. Historians still argue whether these harmonies helped regulate pressure or just drowned out the forewoman's snoring. A junior trainee misplaces her wedge. The stack tilts like a drunken pagoda. The head presser catches it mid-slide, her biceps flexing under indigo-dyed sleeves. 20 years, I've saved sheets from idiots, she grunts. You count exactly 19 water stains on her apron, but nobody corrects her. They layer felt between pages, goat hair, padding absorbent enough to sop up secrets. Your thumb brushes a half-formed sheet, its fibers clinging like shy lovers. Some claim Tang dynasty workshops used dead crickets in their pulp for improved texture. The forewoman spits at the notion. Superstition ruins good stock. The chorus rises again, 3-part harmony, vibrating through rib bones. You catch stray verses about drowned sailors and mulberry thefts, or maybe laundry instructions. A teenage presser mouths wrong lyrics, her cheeks flushing when others snicker. The rhythms, the thing palm slaps on stone sinking with weighted drops. Thud, pause, shift, thud. Someone sneaks peppercorns into the felt, their scent repelling moths and dull apprentices alike. You inhale the medicinal sting, memories of grandfathers, arthritis poultices flooding back. Sheets pressed today might outlive your grandchildren if the sizing doesn't flake off by noon. The forewoman barks a command. 16 workers lift the final weight. Its shadow swallows your boots whole. Pulp weeps milky tears onto the cobblestones, drying into crusted constellations. That trainee from earlier licks her finger testing humidity like a baker judging dough. The forewoman smacks her hand away. Taste the pulp after lunch. Morning sun slants through reed screens, striping the yard with prison bar shadows. They peel the first sheet together, a collective inhale as fibers hold. The watermark emerges, lotus roots tangled like lovers' braids. Someone jokes it's the forewoman's private garden design. She retaliates by assigning them 50 extra flips. You pocket a rejected corner, the lotus root smudged into Rorschach ambiguity. Tomorrow's workers will find it, perhaps mistaking the blot for a map to buried coins. Tonight it'll sit in your satchel, absorbing the scent of camphor and bad decisions. 3 historians in Kyoto are fighting about this watermark's meaning. As you breathe their letters mid-flight across stormy seas, cranes announce the breakfast gong, their wooden beaks clacking in Morse code even the scribes ignore. Last week's apprentice still sports a bruise where a counterweight grazed her hip. The shape mirrors the lotus stem on today's finest sheet. She doesn't notice, but the dyer's son sketching her from the gate certainly does. The yard empties, stone circles warming in the sun like fossilized pancakes. A cat emerges to lick residual starch, its tongue rasping against forgotten fibers. You swear it glares at you, same judgmental stare as the seminary's head librarian. Somewhere, a monk unwittingly uses yesterday's sheet for his grocery list. Carrots and enlightenment, neatly aligned in vermilion ink. The monastery's incense can't mask camphors bite your nose wrinkles at smuggled sutras soaking in preservative vats. A novice folds prayer flags into false floors, his knuckles whitening at each creak of distant hooves. They say Kublai's scouts burn libraries weekly, paper ash mingling with campaign tent soot. Historians still argue whether Mongol horseshoes caused more fires than actual torches. Those iron curves sparking on flint roads, your sleeve catches on a chest corner. The hidden compartment springs open with a monk's embarrassing yelp. Inside, sutras pressed thinner than onion skins, and a suspicious quantity of fermented mare's milk for preservation, mutters the scripture hider, avoiding your raised eyebrow. The real secrets in the paper edges, tiny mantras stamped by thumbnail during night watch. 3 seniors chant over boiling glue horse hooves, simmering into translucent adhesive. A heretical thought occurs. This smells exactly like your uncle's combat boot soup. They dip brushes with ritual precision, but you spot trembling fingertips. Last week's raid took the East Wing's best calligrapher. His half-finished lotus sermon still bleeds ink upstairs. Wind rattles the scriptorium shutters. A junior drops his burin with a clatter. The master scribe doesn't look up from his colophon, though his brushstroke condemns the noise forever. Check the watermark, he orders, pressing today's sheet against the window. Sunlight betrays pressed grass stems in the pulp, a novice's failed attempt at reinforcement. You pocket a rejected scrap. Its frayed edge spells Om in unintentional braille. Some claim sutras hidden here inspired Marco Polo's lost diary pages, though Phoenicians likely exaggerated for better tavern tips. The monastery cat bats at your sash her claws, snagging a thread from last century's vestments. Dusk brings paranoid innovation, sutras copied onto rags meant for wound dressing. Bandages that preach non-attachment, quips the infirmary monk, wrapping your paper cut with a psalm. His smirk fades at the watchtower bell, 3 rings, meaning scouts approach. Everyone becomes a statue until the bell tolls 4 and someone laughs too loud. Midnight finds you in the recycling vault, pulping failed sutras into tomorrow's lottery tickets. A hidden mantra surfaces in the slurry, endure, repeating like water wheel creaks. The vat guard mutters about portents, or maybe tonight's spoiled bean curd. Dawn reveals smuggled scrolls in rice barrels, their indigo ink bleeding into breakfast. The abbot pretends not to notice, though his kanji turns suspiciously cerulean. Novices devour holy words with pickled radishes, scripture nourishing bellies, and souls alike. You save a soy-stained corner, its smudged characters now preaching unity through legume-based metaphors. Historians will later parse these stains as spiritual symbolism, ignoring the kitchen's chronic soy sauce shortage. The colophon master glides past his sleeve, depositing a folded map in your sash, Xanadu's roots in vermilion, and 12 taverns safely outside Mongol tax zones. The cat follows you into sunlight, tail flicking as if to erase footprints. The cat leads you downstream, past prayer wheels silenced by missing mantras. A cracked wooden slat catches your eye, its carved lotus petals now scooping river grit. Voices rise beyond the bend monks, repurposing broken rituals into something pulpy and new. You round the willows to find chaos, a disassembled prayer wheel lashed to bamboo poles. Novices dunk hemp scraps into its hollow frame, river current turning sacred geometry into a pulp agitator. Buddha's Heart Sutra never mentioned axles, mutters the engineering monk, his robe hitched up to avoid wetting the hem. 3 kicks start the contraption, wooden paddles slapping water into froth. Preliminary pulp swirls with mulberry leaves and what looks like shredded tax documents. Everyone ignores the floating characters for imperial levy. History's first paper recycling program, masquerading as piety. A senior tests the sludge with chopsticks, nods approval at its soul-washing consistency. Your fingers dip into the vat, expecting cold, but sun-warmed fibers cling like ancestral memories. Someone's tossed in faded prayer flags, their blessings dissolving into tomorrow's stationery. The master scribe arrives, crushing mint leaves underfoot to mask the mold stench. Mongols track glue recipes, he warns, yet winks while stirring mashed lentils into the mix. Historians still debate whether Buddhist prohibitions against animal glue spurred legume-based adhesives, or if the kitchen just ran out of beans. Nightfall brings stealth upgrades, stolen horse collars, stabilizing the axle. You catch 2 novices debating torque ratios, their whispers half technical jargon, half repentance chant. The river accepts all offerings, splashing louder wherever the mechanism hesitates. Dawn reveals a miracle, smeared ink holding firm on beanstarch sheets. Even the monastery cat approves, leaving paw prints across a sutra like personal endorsements. Workers laugh at the watermark's accidental shape, a paddle wheel encircling Bodhidharma's grumpiest frown. You pocket a reject. The fibers hold a fingerprint where someone tested dryness with a thumb. Modern archivists will later carbon date this speck of skin, never guessing it belonged to a novice who failed meditation practice. Midday drudgery sparks rebellion. A junior modifies the wheel with fishing nets. Now it strains pulp while catching breakfast carp. The scribe master pretends not to see, though dinner's sudden fish soup hints at quiet approval. Rain complicates everything, swollen river speeding the wheel to dangerous RPMs. Novices scramble like mismatched gears until someone wedges a sandal into the works. The resulting pulp, emerges flecked with leather, later marketed as enlightenment through impermanence, stationary. Your final task: haul waterlogged scriptures to the new contraption. Pages siphoned through prayer wheel paddles become unrecognizable. Yet the softest folios you've ever touched. Some claim 12th century poets wrote on this pulp, though surviving verses suspiciously praise the rhythm of creaking wood. As stars emerge, a single note sustains beneath night sounds. River lapping paddles, distant bells counting hours, your own breath sinking to the monks. Oldest truth: even broken circles can grind the mundane into something holy. Musk of drying ink hangs thick. You duck under shelves groaning with sheepskin scrolls. A scholar slams his fist, parchment ripples like offended royalty. This flimsy tree skin insults Confucius. His beard quivers, corners of rejected paper curling in mockery. 3 novices shuffle past, arms stacked with blank sheets that flutter like trapped doves. You press a page to your cheek. The surface holds monastery dust and something vegetal, like week-old dumpling wrappers. Across the scriptorium, a calligrapher hesitates, his brush hovering between vellum's creamy assurance and paper's hungry blot. They test him first with inventory lists, cheap mistakes permitted. Bamboo slips clatter as he writes, new characters bleeding faster across the sheet. His eyebrows lift when the ink dries before he can smudge it. Noon sun baking errors into permanence. Word spreads through ink-stained alleys. Librarians note transactions. Completed 3 incense sticks faster. You trace a fresh ledger, numbers blurred, where parsimonious stewards reused the same square, inch twice. Historians still argue whether paper fueled bureaucracy or merely documented its cancerous growth. A crash interrupts. 3 apprentices topple a vellum, stack older than their grandparents. The master binder groans, counting repair costs in silver ounces. Behind his back, a junior slides the damaged scrolls into the pulping vat, efficiency outweighing sentiment. Nightfall reveals clandestine adopters, poets scratching verses onto stolen scrap sheets. Their quills skate across the surface, no more fighting sheepskin's stubborn grooves. You linger near a love poem, its metaphors dissolving, where the writer's tears diluted walnut ink. Dawn brings a reluctant convert, the metaphysics professor. He demands paper, matching parchment's dignity, then jumps when his sleeve sticks to a still damp folio. Students hide smirks behind recycled taxation forms, their margins crammed with unflattering caricatures. You spot the telltale watermark, local monks, stamped each sheet with 8-fold path symbols. One batch accidentally uses the Temple Brewery's cask brand, meditation wheels replaced by frothing mugs. Archivists will spend centuries debating if this counts as religious satire. Monsoon humidity settles the argument. Parchment warps like bloated corpses, while paper merely sags. A librarian's desperate nail unearths hidden text, previous entries ghosting through fresh ink. layered chronicles. He crows, unaware he's rediscovered palimpsests 4 centuries early. Your thumb finds a sheet's rough edge. The teenager straining fibers missed a bark fragment. Tomorrow's historian will misinterpret this flaw penning papers on deliberate textural symbolism in early song records. By lantern light, accountants huddle like conspirators. Abacus beads click prophecies. How many trees equal 1 dead sheep? You pocket a discarded calculation, its bottom line scratched out and replaced with profit. Uncertain, convenience, immense. The final holdout capitulates at midnight, a royal edict demanding lightweight tax records for easier transport. Eunuchs fold the proclamation into paper cranes, a silent protest fluttering into the ministry's courtyard fountain. You unroll a fresh folio, its fibers still humming with yesterday's river currents. Somewhere downstream, the prayer wheel contraption creaks on, turning doubt into necessity, one splintered revolution at a time. Your boots crunch through mulberry leaves, frozen mid-decay, each step releasing whispers of last season's harvest. Uyghur mothers, you realize, never wrote down their pulp ratios. They hummed them, cradles rocking to the rhythm of 8 parts rag shreds. 1 part, blessed well, stir counter moonwise, thrice. A girl, no older than 7, needs a hemp cotton slurry, her small fists moving in time to her mother's ballad. You catch the tune's numeric code. 3rd verse escalates boiling time by half a fishing song's duration. Historians still argue whether these melodies preserved trade secrets or simply made math lessons survivable for preteens. 3 vats bubble behind the yurt, an acid tang teasing your nostrils. 1 holds linen strips salvaged from a sand-buried caravan. Another steeps with nettle fibers for the Khan's tax scrolls. The 3rd, grandmother's surprise, grins the matriarch stirring it, a pulp of abandoned bird nests and regret. Daughters inherit recipes through bedtime murmurs, measurements disguised as fairy tale warnings. Never skim the foam before the 7th crow's cry, lest the sheet grow jealous eyes. You watch a teen giggle while chanting, her fingers filtering debris with the precision of silk weavers. Sheep's milk steams in clay bowls nearby, its richness masking the pulp vat's vinegary tang. A toddler naps atop folded sheets, each page imprinting his cheek with a watermark of crossed cooking knives. Saladin's first contract, his aunt chuckers peeling the boy free without tearing the fiber. Men return at dusk with armfuls of cast-off textiles, sweat-stained turbans, and outgrown underrobes. Women sort them by fiber tongue tests. Cotton gets a 3-note lullaby, wool merits 5 warning clicks. You pocket a scrap of wedding veil lace, its tight weave destined to become a judge's verdict folio. Moonlight reveals the true sorcery. Mothers simmer rags in ash lye, transforming ankle bandages into snow-bright sheets. A teen miscalculates the fire's heat, her batch emerging the color of weak tea. Perfect, declares her grandmother, dyeing the mistake with beet juice for festival invitation scrolls. You witness THE Chinese letter, 3 Chinese letter liturgy, a goddess's hymn repurposed to time dip scooping motions, 4 verses to submerge the mold, 6 to drain, 9 to press. A sleepwalking toddler corrects her sister's count, still mouthing ratios through dreams of candied lotus root. The village disputes one lullaby's closing stanza. Is it 2 fists of willow bark or 2 figs worth of resin? Elders compromise by adding both, resulting in paper so pungent, archivists will blame medieval rodent deterrents. Your thumb finds a finished sheet's watermark, 4 concentric circles mimicking the cradle's sway. Modern labs will later identify mulberry DNA in 93% of Silk Road manuscripts, never realizing the pollen came from babies chewing bark teethers. Before leaving, you accept a folded sample, its fibers still damp with tonight's lullabies. 3 miles down the trail, the wind unravels a whispered chorus. 7 rags, 1 well, 3 stirs, drifting over dunes that have buried 10,000 better documented innovations. Camel bells muffle the final lesson, and auntie teaching twins to blend pulps through clapping games. Their laughter bounces off the vats, each giggle distilling centuries of never written down instructions. You pocket a misheard lyric. Boil until the stars sweat, tucking genius between folklore and forgetting. The desert morning arrives like a furnace door creaking open, heat ripples, turning the oasis into a mirage of melted glass. Workers lay outlast night's sheets across cracked earth, each rectangle positioned precisely between goat trails. You crouch to inspect a freshly pressed folio, its fibers still humming with the vibration of the village's song looms. Historians later calculate Tang-era papermakers could dry 16,000 sheets per summer, assuming the scorpions didn't claim their share. Sun-bleached hemp glows like ancient parchment under your palm, the scent of evaporating river water rising like ghost steam. A goat herd whistles at his flock, kids skittering around paper meadows like thieves avoiding pressure plates. You mimic his tiptoeing heel-to-heel through a labyrinth of folios curring into permanence. Workers swear donkey saliva helps flatten cockled edges. Their breath still smells of hay-scented spittle centuries later in museum archives. Midday transforms the field into a kiln. Pages crisp at the edges, their honey gold fibers contracting into stability. You rescue a sheet lifting in the wind, its corner imprinted with a perfect hoofprint. Free authentication seal, jokes a teen rivulating sweat onto her headscarf. She demonstrates the official squint-and nod technique for approving batch quality, left eyelid twitching like a parchment beetle's wings. The quirks emerge as shadows lengthen. One sheet curls inward, edges meeting like praying hands, while another warps into a miniature dune. You press a warped folio flat, only for it to spring back with the resilience of seasoned bamboo. Scholars still bicker whether these contortions resulted from monsoon humidity or impatient calligraphers heating sheets over breakfast fires. A gust unravels a worker's head wrap, sending indigo-dyed linen fluttering onto drying sheets. The group freezes, then bursts into applause as the fabric stains 3 pages with accidental ocean patterns. Limited edition, declares the culprit, already haggling prices with a passing spice merchant. Your fingers brush a stain, still tacky, with the indigo maker's signature, fermented urine solution. Dusk brings relief and reckoning. Workers stack sheets using forearm calluses as thickness gauges, each folio whispering secrets to its neighbor. You lift a perfect rectangle backlit by the sinking sun, only to spot date palm shadows cutting across its surface. They'll auction this flawed batch to poets, who'll claim the stripes inspired groundbreaking couplets about tigers imprisoned in bamboo. The foreman pockets a reject, its center torn by what he swears was a jealous sandfox's claw. You trade your least trusted coin for a sheet that refused to dry flat, edges curled like smoke tendrils. Wrapping it around a canteen, you create an instant scroll case, while ruining tomorrow's drinking water with dissolved mulberry adhesive. Laughter erupts from the weighing station. A new recruit has misread a stone weight as 7 instead of 70. His featherlight folios now drift into the tamarisk grove, becoming next season's scholar problem during leaf collection duty. You help salvage 3 sheets, their surfaces tattooed with thorn-scratched constellations only donkeys could decipher. As constellations replace sunlight, workers sing the evening inventory hymn. 20 for Samarkand, 15 for Kashgar, 5 destined to line a Khan's forgotten concubine's jewelry box. You contribute a warped sheet to the count, its undulating surface catching moonlight like crumbled silk. Someone suggests weighing it as 2 pages, sparking a debate that'll outlive the dynasty. The field exhales cinnamon-scented dampness as you leave last week's discarded spice sacks melting into the earth. Your stolen folio grows warm against your back, its defiant curl mirroring the crescent moon above. Somewhere, a historian's monocle will fog up studying its contours, while a poet licks the salty corner and calls it masterpiece. The cobalt glow catches you mid-yawn. Dawn breaks over the oasis like a dropped water jar, metallic tang of mineral springs clashing with fermenting ink vats. Papermakers hoist a stone mortar brimming with crushed lapis lazuli, gems pried from Afghan mines to outshine the sky itself. One slip sends blue powder cascading into a reed pulp slurry, and suddenly you're stirring the Mediterranean at arm's length. Workers debate leaving the mistake until a passing merchant offers double for royal azure stock. Historians later confirm Uyghur artisans pioneered walnut husk black ink, but the truly rich demanded blues that bankrupted sultans. Your pinky skims the vat's edge, comes away looking like a drowned noble's ring finger. The alchemy begins. Pulp absorbs pigment in uneven blooms, some sheets pooling ink like monsoon puddles, others resisting like camels, refusing muddy water. A novice dunks a flawed sheet, its surface tearing into lace, but the foreman praises the artful perforations. You pocket a rejected scrap, its blue so intense it dyes your thigh through 2 layers of linen. Midday brings disaster. A vat overheats, curdling ink into clumps resembling a cat's post-bath fur. Frantic dipping creates sheets mottled like leopards, which the team markets as celestial cheetah parchment. Workers joke about exporting the look to Dalmatia, their laughter dissolving into coughs from acrid fumes. Quill tests reveal surprises. The blue bleeds worse than a speared horseman, yet dries 7 breaths faster than standard ink. You attempt a constellation diagram, the Big Dipper's handle smudging into a scorpion's tail. Scholars still argue whether these mistake maps inspired early astronomy or just confused every caravan navigator west of Kashgar. Sunset inspection unearths magic. A sheet left in moonlight displays star-like speckles, flecks of pyrite in the lapis, glittering under celestial light. The foreman declares it a divine endorsement, orders 20 more batches despite dwindling water reserves. Your thumb finds a cluster that eerily mirrors last night's sky, right down to the comet streak you'd wished upon. The quirky truth emerges at midnight. Workers sneak gulps from sacred, well water. Unaware minerals react with residual ink to make their teeth luminescent. Grinning in the dark, they resemble a council of ghosts chewing sapphires, and accidentally terrify a Duncollection brigade into fleeing. By dawn, reality sets in. The prized batch warps sideways, sheets coiling into scrolls without human help. One particularly rebellious folio slithers off the drying rack, earning the nickname Silk Road Serpent. You press it beneath a Quran stand, only to discover it's imprinted the holy book's engravings in reverse. As traders haul away the flawed masterpieces, a caravan master pauses. His thumb rubs a star-speckled sheet, then orders 50 more for a poet prince, obsessed with impermanent skywritings. You watch camels sway into the horizon, blue-dyed rains dripping onto sand, each droplet blossoming into temporary indigo flowers before the desert claims them. The final test comes unannounced. A spilled vinegar jug hits a defective sheet, bleaching a perfect circle into Prussian blue. Workers stare, then begin etching lunar phases using lemon juice doubloons. Historians will later authenticate these as early chemical etching experiments, though everyone present agrees they just wanted to watch the foreman's mustache twitch. Your souvenir sheet remains tucked in a cedar box, still bleeding cerulean onto the wood grain. Beeswax seals gleam like misplaced stars, while a single pyrite fleck winks from the corner. Somewhere in Samarkand, a mathematician squints at your accidental scorpion constellation, convinced he's discovered a lost astrological prophecy. You don't have the heart to tell him It's just a donkey's sneeze frozen in time and azure. The sand hits like a million tiny creditors, each grain demanding immediate repayment for your desert trespass. Workers sprint between drying racks, stone weights clutched to chests, as wind yanks half-cured sheets into the air. One folio slaps your cheek, its wet pulp sticking like a beggar's pleading hand before shredding against tamarisk thorns. Medieval paper mills really did anchor stacks with rocks during storms, though records omit how often those stones became projectiles. A laborer ducks as a flying weight demolishes a water jar, the crash drowned out by the dunes howling. You crawl toward a half-buried sheet, fingers closing around its edge, just as the wind shifts direction. The rescued fragment reveals inked curves, a lover's final plea trailing into torn oblivion. Meet me where the crow's nest in ruins bleeds through grit, the rest lost to a thorn bush, now wearing parchment like carnival ribbons. Someone shouts about camel-urine being better than water for cleaning salvage, and 3 workers immediately start undoing their trousers. Chaos breeds innovation, or at least questionable choices. A team repurposes hemp nets meant for fishing, swinging them like gladiators to snatch airborne sheets. One man actually catches 3 folios mid-whirlwind, only to realize their tax records he'd hoped got destroyed. Historians still argue whether the famous Samarkand sandstorm codicil was legal genius or just bureaucratic panic preserved by good aim. Your boots crunch on something that isn't sand. A buried folio stack survived intact, protected by a shattered celadon vase acting as makeshift armor. The top sheet shows a sketched courtyard, archways melting under storm-fueled imagination. A worker swears it's Bukhara's blue mosque, until turning the page reveals a child's doodle of a 2-humped chicken. Lightning illuminates the absurdity. Grown adults wrestle paper slabs like matadors, their shadows flailing on dunes. Someone's abandoned sandal becomes an emergency folio, weight nailed down with a lucky dagger. You pocket a thorn-ripped scrap, its edge displaying a single word: forever. The wind promptly steals the adjacent scrap reading, or until Tuesday. Dawn arrives stingily. Workers comb the battleground, salvage baskets brimming with crumpled tragedies and grocery lists. A foreman finds a sheet perfectly preserved around a scorpion carcass, marketing it as authentic desert mummification parchment. You spot your love poem fragment in a discard pile, its ink now smeared into Rorschach blots. The caravan arrives mid-morning. Traders examine warped sheets, haggling over textured and pre-distressed surcharges. One merchant's toddler stuffs a folio into his mouth, giggling at the crunch. Papermakers shrug, deciding it's still a better fate than flying into a thorn bush's papier-mâché nest. You slip the word forever into your sleeve, its letters leaving phantom indentations on your forearm. Somewhere east, a heartbroken scribe dips his pen to rewrite the lost verses. unaware the desert's already drafted its own cynical sequel. The wind quiets its appetite for destruction, briefly sated by 10,000 shredded love stories. The merchant's calloused fingernail hovers over your sample sheet, decades of unrolling scrolls evident in his grip. His sniff echoes across the stall, equal parts appraisal and theater. 2 bolts of silk sit between you, crimson threads shimmering like liquid poppies, while your paper ream sweats under desert noon. Too thin for contracts, he mutters, though you spot his assistant eyeing the watermark. That hidden lotus took 7 pulp layers to perfect. Smudged slightly when your apprentice sneezed mulberry paste, you flip the sheet, sunlight revealing the flower's silhouette through the fibers. He stiffens. 8th century Samarkand mills pioneered watermarking, embedding symbols to combat counterfeiters. Your version's lopsided petals betray its rushed origin. Authentic molds, you bluff, gesturing toward imaginary craftsmen chiseling designs in moonlit workshops. His assistant mouths, bullshit behind a date sack. Negotiations pivot on absurdities. He demands throw pillows stuffed with rejected paper shreds, minutes after claiming your sheets lack substance. You counter by referencing the sandstorms, texturing services, free of charge. A toddler tugs his robe, offering 3 walnuts for the entire inventory. Silk Road ledgers confirm merchants traded paper by weight, yet here, values measured in drama. He flips a coin, depicting a long-dead caliph, claiming it's worth 6 reams. You remind him that currencies from a dynasty that taxed camel flatulence. The quirky part. His final offer includes 2 gerbils. Rodent-based barter thrived during Baghdad's 9th century ink shortage. Scholars paid scribes with parchment inspectors to eat book lice. These particular gerbils look conspiratorial. Historians still argue whether watermarks denoted origin or just let forgers upsell floral defects. You lean into mysticism, claiming the lotus guides legal documents to benevolent judges. His eyes narrow, then glint. 3 bolts now plus the rodents. Dusk brings compromise. Your watermark sways him, though you'll swear forever that his exclusive design is replicable in any back alley mill. He departs with reams strapped to mules, gerbils plotting escape from their wicker prison. You keep 1 bolt as a sash, its threads itching like 100 tiny lies. The unsold sheets whisper promises. Tomorrow, they'll carry land deeds, poems, grocery lists, maybe even a pardon for those thieving rodents. For now, moonlight turns your stall into a cathedral of maybes, each folio a blank page for whatever truth buyers need to swallow. The gerbil-less stall feels larger tonight, moonlight pooling where walnut shells rolled hours prior. You're adjusting the faulty hinge on a pulp sieve when small fingers grip the workbench's edge. A head barely clears the wood, 9-year-old eyes reflecting your lantern like twin Baghdad coins. Uncle Bao says I'm your problem now, the kid announces. Their tunics' sleeves swallow both hands, frayed silk smelling of yesterday's noodle broth. Behind them, the paper master's silhouette melts into the bazaar's shadowed arches. 9th century Tang law set apprenticeship minimums at 12. But drought years blur ledgers. They point at your watermark stamper, its lotus contours still flecked with this morning's haggling lies. Can I break that? You hand them a mulberry twig instead, fibers pre-chewed to spaghetti softness. Spit here. Historical accounts fixate on imperial workshops, ignoring the spit bonds holding beginners' pulp together. Their first attempt resembles a duck's nest after monsoon rains. You nod like it's intentional, crater textures trending in Xi'an markets. Adults materialize, a choreographed accident. Auntie Ling trips to reinforce the vat's wobbling leg. Cousin Wen finds an extra pressing stone exactly where the child's sheet sags. No one mentions apprenticeships being half mentorship, half covert sheet resuscitation. The kid beams at their creation, a warped rectangle thinner at one edge. It's like a map of the Taklamakan. You bite back the truth. Drying racks devour lopsided sheets. Instead, exactly, Emperor Xuanzong's cartographers paid extra for abstract flourishes. The lie tastes sweet, like stolen honeycomb. Night deepens. They stir pulp clockwise, as you taught, while sneaking counterclockwise swirls when they think you're not looking. Innovation thrives in disobedience. Some scholars claim the Silk Road's paper durability came from apprentice tears in the pulp mix. But try publishing that thesis. A sneeze nearly topples the screen. The child freezes, awaiting scolding. You toss a date pit at their elbow. Bless you. Now add 3 more sneezes. We're making textured stationery. By dawn, their 10th sheet holds together barely. The watermark tilts like a drunken calligrapher's signature. Workshop veterans materialize again. One, accidentally spilling starch to reinforce weak fibers. Another scrapes mold off edges with a thumbnail flicking defects into the fire. Historians still argue whether teaching children papermaking was benevolence or a scheme for cheaper labor. You watch the kid prod their creation, proud as a new parent. Their grin widens at your nod. None mention the 5 stealthily patched layers beneath the surface, each mend timed to their turned back. Craftsmanship, it turns out, is just collective make-believe. You send them home clutching the sheet, its deliberate imperfections. Now legend, the repaired spots itch under your fingertips. Tomorrow, someone will write a land deed on that page, unaware of the starch reinforcements, or the tiny snot globe from that epical sneeze. Dawn's first cart clatters past. Somewhere, a gerbil gnaws through wicker, beginning its own apprenticeship in escape. Frost crawls up the workshop's bamboo walls, its crystalline teeth gnawing where the gerbils escape whole gapes. You chip ice from a pulp vat's rim, the tang of frozen hemp, fibers sharp as a knife grind. Workers huddle around clay braziers, though huddle implies warmth. 9th century Tang ledgers confirm it. Papermakers paid double for winter shifts. if they survived till spring. A rookie mistakes frost patterns for mold, scraping away precious fibers until you grab his wrist. Those jagged lines, you thump the sheet against sunlight. Nature's watermark. Buddhist monasteries pay extra for divine fracture scrolls. The lie fogs between you, steam from a nearby hearth, curling it into plausibility. Horses snort outside, their breath hanging like ghostly paper sheets above snowdrifts. Boxthorn berries burst under hooves, staining slush the color of spoiled ink. Someone's hauled a frozen stack indoors, the bottom sheets fused into a fiber glacier. You press an ear to the block. Hear that? 3 layers deep, ice crystals singing sutras. Historians still argue whether frost-webbed paper was prized for aesthetics, or just Emperor Li used cost-cutting excuse for faulty batches. You're too busy thawing folios against your stomach body heat safer than fire for fragile sheets. Your apprentice flinches as a page separates, its edge flaking like dried dragon scales. Look, you tilt the sheet sideways. Veins of ice melt shimmer, trapped air bubbles forming a constellation only visible in winter light. The kid forgets their chilblains. Did we make stars? Technically, mold spores. Poetically, sure stars. You flick a still frozen corner. Market these as sky maps to Persian star worshippers. Triple the price. The workshop snickers, a sound warmer than the braziers. Noon brings unlikely thieves, goats licking mineral salts from stacked pulp bricks. Their rectangular pupils track your shovel as you chase them into drifts. Hoofprints circle back by twilight, deepening around freshly hidden mulberry bark stores. Clever bastards, nightfall's ritual, positioning sheets near, but not too near, the hearth's scarlet tongue. A monk's manuscript warps from the heat, its inked mantras blurring into Rorschach blots of enlightenment. You salvage it with snow-cooled stones, the steam hissing a shoe dialect curse. Dawn reveals nature's mischief, a perfectly dried sheet bearing paw prints from some frost demon cat. Keep it, you mutter. Charge wealthy widows extra for protective tiger spirit stationery. The most skilled scams wear whiskers. By the solstice, you've mastered frost's trickery, dipping brushes in algae green ice melt to tint sheets jade. The apprentice discovers that spit freezes midair here, perfect for creating raised, embossed characters. Merchants will claim it's carved by mountain spirits. Let them. The last shipment steams out on ox carts, papyrus lacquered against meltwater. You pocket a flawed sheet as the workshop empties, its crystalline web echoing the gerbil's vanished tunnel. Under the thawing roof, something drips in rhythm. Ice or footsteps, doesn't matter. Both leave marks worth selling. The spice merchant arrives, with sacks gaping like hungry mouths, cardamom pods spilling into last night's puddles. You catch a peppercorn between thumb and forefinger, its cracked surface radiating heat, even through leather gloves. 9th century inventory lists from Chang'an confirm it. Pepper worth twice its weight in paper for preservation and showing off. Workers layer sheets with cinnamon sticks. The barks curl, mimicking frail scroll edges. Careful, you mutter as an apprentice inhales too deeply. That's not cinnamon. True story, Xia Dynasty forgers used ground tree bark to fake rare spices. The kid pales, then sneezes a saffron cloud across a half-dried folio. Golden strands embed in the pulp, an accident that'll have collectors calling it dragon's breath parchment. You roll it up quick. New premium line. Monsoon gold sheets, 5 silk bolts per page. The merchant eyes you, and if they ask about the smell, tell them it's the sweat of Persian poets. Mice test your defenses nightly, nibbling ginger slices left as decoys, but avoiding actual paper. Clever bastards, one bold rat drags a star anise pod into the rafters, its licorice scent masking stolen mulberry paste. You let it go. Every thief deserves one trophy. Historians still argue whether spice layers repelled insects or just made manuscripts taste terrible to scholars. You've seen both, silverfish fleeing cloves, but swarming nutmeg-dusted contracts. The real trick, crushed black pepper in the glue. Beetles hate the sniffles. Dawn reveals a catastrophe, a raccoon's midnight feast scattering cardamom husks across 50 sheets. No, wait. You lift a page to the light. Claw marks pierce the fibers, creating perfect circles around inked characters. Market these as fortune-teller oracles. Charge extra for the raccoon divination fee. Nightfall brings a dangerous game, balancing pungency with prestige. Too much turmeric stains pages jaundiced. Too little mace invites weevils with a sweet tooth. You steep juniper berries in the sizing vat, their pine-sharp fumes clearing sinuses and deterring moths in one sting. The apothecary swaps rumors for saffron discounts. The caliph's scribes, she whispers, dip paper in rosewater laced with crushed pearls. You shrug. Pearls dissolve. Sneeze on a sheet here, it becomes currency. She leaves with a sample folio and a suspiciously yellowed nose. By week's end, the storeroom hums, common heavy air thickening into something chewable. A monk sneaks in to meditate. This, he inhales until his eyes water, is how enlightenment should smell. You gift him a rejected sheet, its coriander patches glowing like saintly rashes in lantern light. The apprentice finds you scowling at a pristine page. What's wrong? You point to a tiny hole. Peppercorn pit. Means the batch is unprotected. They lean closer. Or a comet piercing the paper sky. Damn poets. Closing time. You swipe a rejected sheet, its edges brittle with dried chili flakes. Outside, desert wind carries the tang of profit and poor life choices. Somewhere, a scholar unpacks your monsoon gold special and attributes their allergic tears to profound wisdom. Close enough. New Year's Eve air bites your cheeks, lanterns casting long shadows over crimson-stained workshops. You dip a brush into iron-rich dye, same formula Tang officials used to mark tax exemptions. The pot bubbles with mysteries, fermented sugar cane, crushed beetles, and if the rumors are true, a splash of ox blood. An apprentice eyes the mixture. Are we making paper or soup? Depends if the magistrate visits. Elders grind ink sticks against frost-rimed stones. The rhythm syncs with distant drum rehearsals. Your sleeve catches an uncut sheet, its fibers still holding a grandmother's fingerprint from 40 winters past. Families barter linen scraps for red-dipped folios. The poorer the cloth, the brighter the luck. You've seen emperors hoard gold-stitched robes, but nothing rivals a beggar's threadbare sleeve transformed into wish paper. A child's palm slams onto a fresh sheet, sticky rice glue doubling as punishment for sneaking sweets. Leave it, you say. Now it's art. The blotch hardens into a comet shape, sugar crystals glittering like a celestial omen. Historians still argue whether double happiness symbols began as a typo or a drunk calligrapher's rebellion. You side with the drunk. Midnight nears. Workers stack sheets into towers, each layer separated by chrysanthemum petals to prevent ambition smudging. Someone hums a band ballad about a papermaker who fell in love with an ink ghost. You don't stop them. Lyrics about star-crossed, stationary beat temple chants. Any icy evening, the oldest resident arrives with a bamboo tube, her hands unrolling a wish from the Yuan dynasty. Faded crimson clings to the characters like peach blossoms on a deathbed. Read it, she insists. The script begs for rain. Dated to the year, locusts ate the governor's tax records. Convenient. Firecrackers erupt as you fold today's final sheet, red dye seeping into cuticles you'll scrub for weeks. A merchant waves 2 gilt invitations. Which looks luckier? The left bears a dragon with squid ink whiskers. The right, a phoenix that accidentally resembles a disgruntled chicken. You pocket both. They'll argue for hours. We'll sell popcorn. Dawn finds a scrap sticking to your boot, discarded draft of a love poem. The characters for eternity blur where the dye resisted cheap starch. You pin it to the wall. Years from now, some romantic fool will swear those smudges were tears. Let them. The market buzzes with lies. This crimson came from rubies. My ancestor brushed this himself. You spit on a forged colophon saliva, reactivating centuries-old indigo to expose the liar. His face matches the paper's original shade. Poetic justice stinks like fermented sugarcane. Sunset stains the workshop, walls bloody. An apprentice asks why you keep that faded apricot-hued sheet in your sash. Reminder, you say. Even the boldest wishes fade, but the fibers remember the heat of the hands that held them. Fluorescent light buzzes overhead, its artificial glare flattening the 8th century sheet into something clinical. You adjust your nitrile gloves, 21st century armor against time's oils. Beneath the microscope's lens, mulberry fibers twist like lovers in a Tang dynasty folktale. They used duck poop for bleach, your lab partner mutters. Even the papermaking had birchet poetry. A centrifuge hums nearby, spun remnants of an Italian conservator's failed adhesive. Your scalpel teases apart layers. 7th century hemp, 9th century linen, 23 visible repairs. Each mended tier maps a crisis. Mongol invasions recorded not in ink, but ragged pulp. Someone's thumbprint lingers near a dog-eared corner, pressed into the sizing 200 years before fingerprints meant anything. You dunk a sample in distilled water. The liquid clouds with starch from Song Dynasty wheat. Carbon dating results glare from your laptop. A 6-month deadline to replicate the sheet exactly. Same fibers, same imperfections, same faint reek of fermented bark. The lab techs call ancient kombucha. Modern vats lack the accidental poetry of open-air decay. Lunch arrives, a styrofoam container of kung pao chicken. The laminate sample beneath it warps slightly from steam. Irony tastes like MSG and failure. Your boss texts, "Just make it look old." You scribble "That's what she," then delete it. Unprofessional, even if your career's crumbling faster than Ming Dynasty sizing. The original sheet lies under glass now, preserved like Snow White in a climate-controlled coffin. Historians still argue whether 9th century papermakers celebrated flawless sheets or secretly prized the wormholes and stains. You know the answer. Perfection's tyranny is modern. Those artisans worship the divine in flaws. New ghosts prefer lopsided windows. Replica pulp drips through your screen too uniform, too obedient. Somewhere, a Tang dynasty eunuch laughs in the thermal imaging. You crush a wasp's nest salvaged from your balcony, historical accuracy be damned, and stir the gritty residue into the mush. The mixture ripples, a texture finally worthy of poetry about loss. Night shift murmurs filter through the lab door, grad students debating Netflix shows. Your porridge-textured sheet dries under LEDs mimicking 7th century moonlight. It curls at the edges, same rebellious arc as a Dunhuang cave scroll, resisting unrolling. Success smells like mildew and impending peer review. The security guard pauses by your workstation, his flashlight reflecting in the glass case. Looks like my grandma's wallpaper. You don't correct him. 37 generations separate her floral print from lotus root watermarks. But all walls tell stories. Dawn light leaks through blinds, exposing your replication sins. Modern fibers glare under microscopy, survivors of industrialized harvesting. You drip 5 drops of Earl Grey into the sizing tank. The tannins cloud the water, faux tea stains to mimic a Uyghur caravan's breakfast spill. Academic heresy, poetic justice. The original sheets, colophon whispers under UV light, names erased by pious descendants. Liu Xiaoling, 10th year of Tianbao. Textbook footnote. Unless you've read her charcoal letters to a silk dyer's daughter, the exhibit label will say anonymous. History's closet stays locked. Your last test, folding the replica into a paper crane. It holds the shape for 9 seconds before sagging. The 8th century sheet, 15 seconds of defiance, 6 seconds difference between then and now. 6 seconds of progress lost to sterile labs and grant deadlines. Delete the email chain with Kyoto University. They wanted accelerated aging via ovens. Barbarians. True time requires moonrises and rodents gnawing at storage chests. You tag the sample with a post-it. Wait 300 years. Future conservators will either curse you or toast your patience with Martian whiskey. Power outage plunges the lab into darkness. Your iPhone flashlight catches the original sheet's watermark. A lotus emerges, not as a flower, but as roots tangled in 5 directions. Modern reproductions always show petals. We've forgotten how to depict the struggle beneath bloom. 3 a.m. coffee steams beside a Han Dynasty inkstone repurposed as a coaster. Humidity alerts blink red. You wipe condensation off the glass case, your breath fogging Liu Xiaoling's name. The replica sleeps in its climate-controlled womb. Outside, street sweepers battle fast food wrappers, papermaking's ignoble grandchildren. When the custodians arrive, you're pressing your forehead to the lab bench, ear against wood that once grew beside Kai Lun's paper mills. The centrifuge's hum morphs into temple bells. Or maybe sleep, deprivation's psychedelic gift. Doesn't matter. The original sheet thrums beneath its cage, alive, with centuries of whispered hyperlinks no QR code can hold. UV light slicks across the broken reed pen, its split tip fossilized mid-couplet. You rotate the casing, Persian Gulf sediment still wedged where the nib fractured. Carbon dating says 1217 CE, but the jagged break feels immediate, like hearing a scream preserved in amber. Your tweezers hover over the fracture pattern. Stress concentrations here. The conservator's report begins, then trails into corporate jargon. You mute their PDF. Under magnification, the reed's fibers splay outward, a botanical supernova frozen at detonation. Historians still argue whether Nizami of Ganja snapped his pen in despair, or if a servant trod on it during a midnight ink run. The manuscript fragment floats in pH-balanced saline, its final word bleeding into a comet's tail of cellulose. Zabanihal, language of circumstance, ends mid-stroke. XRF analysis shows traces of manganese dioxide and something organic. You squint at spectrograph peaks, modern machines, confirming what medieval poets knew. Desperation leaves chemical fingerprints. Lab interns snicker over charred photocopies of Fitzgerald's Rubaiyat. Hey, if you resurrect this verse, does it count as fan fiction? Ignore them. Your centrifuge whirs, separating 13th century Damascus ink into mineral ghosts, jade, lapis, crushed scarab beetle wing cases, that quirky sparkle Persia's avant-garde poets demanded before Mongol pragmatism erased such flourishes. A splintered reed replica snaps in your grip, the sound unnervingly close to celery. 3 failed attempts. Too much tension in the wrist, not enough in the soul. You cheat, nicking the quill with a diamond file. The forgery feels convincing. until infrared reveals your hesitation marks. Neat surgical cuts instead of a poet's catastrophic release. The original fragments, verso hides, pressed fenugreek seeds, dinner debris. Prayer offering, bulk purchase from a Kashani spice bazaar. Thermal imaging suggests they once glowed briefly against the page. Caffeine-free inspiration. Your espresso machine gurgles in judgment. Reference photos show the poem's surviving half, a metaphor comparing sorrow to Kai Kaf's melting glaciers. Problem: that mountain's mythological. No ice, no slopes, just a folktale peak where jinns ice skate, your stylus hovers. Does literal truth matter when reconstructing metaphysical ache? Fiber optic backlighting exposes chain lines from the original mold, vertical ribs, like a lover's spine under silk. You mimic them with dental floss strands pressed into fresh sheets. Too perfect. 9th century molds used frayed horsehair, their imperfections creating geography for ink to wander. Midnight drone footage of Ganja's ruins flickers on your second monitor. The poet's hometown, now a gas station near Azerbaijan's highway. A trucker BL, a ST, S, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter, Chinese letter recipes from his cab. History's layers taste like cumin and diesel. The breakthrough comes via stupidity, knocking a coffee mug onto your test sheet. As brown rivulets invade the margin, fibers expand northwest, just like the original's trauma patterns. You document the accident as a controlled moisture event. Academia rewards rebranded failure. CT scans detect subcutaneous pulp layers, 5 drafts buried beneath the final version. Beneath the famous Nightingale's Lament, earlier attempts whisper cruder metaphors. Love as stalled caravan, heart as understaffed caravanserai. Genius is just edited mediocrity with better press. You submit the reconstructed verse, the missing couplet positing doubt as a falconhood for the soul. Colleagues debate vowel diacritics. Purists riot over your inclusion of coal particles in the ink mixture. Never mind that eyeliner residue appears in 7 other ilcanate manuscripts. The display case lights click on your facsimile, twisting slightly from ambient humidity. Beside it, the shattered reed pen sleeps on velvet. Visitors will admire your craftsmanship, never sensing how the fibers yearn to splinter again, to rewrite the past's last word as a beginning. The reed pen's ghost still haunts your fingers as you unroll the camel driver's letter, papyrus crackling like a fire rekindled. Sunlight slants through the conservatory window, golden hour revealing tear smudges under the final signature. Illiterate traders swarmed Samarkand's Sogdian scriptoriums, their love letters outsourced to poets who'd never kissed. Scholars estimate 1 in 3 caravans carried such scribal confessions, though carbon-dated spit stains suggest higher numbers. You peel apart onion skin layers, the outer proclamation still reeking of rosewater and desperation. Your eyes outshine the Pamir snows. It begins standard opener for 9th century infatuation. But pressed beneath, hidden by clever folding, lies a divorce decree for Azar of the too loud snoring. Historians still argue whether this was passive aggression or a logistical hack to save parchment taxes. Infrared reveals more secrets. The scribe used iron gall ink for the love note, cheap and durable. The divorce, carbon black mixed with sheep urine, an acidic brew that's eaten through fibers over centuries. Your pH probe hovers modern science, confirming ancient pettiness. A pressed jujube flower flutters out, its petal veins mirroring the papyrus's chain lines. X-rays showed no poison, just loneliness preserved in cellulose. Traders often included flora from home, proof they'd braved the Kaiselkum's dunes to reach their beloved. This specimen's brittleness suggests hasty packing or a last-minute change of heart. Your magnifier catches a line buried under the scribe's flourish. If this finds you remarried, ignore sections 2 through 4. Mongol census records list 18, as are the snorers, along the 840 CE trade routes. None match the region or timeline. A pseudonym, the real name dissolved by sweat or scorn. Laughter echoes from the museum gift shop, teenagers giggling over ancient breakup texts printed on toilet paper. They're not wrong. The decree's boilerplate phrases appear verbatim in 37 other documents, proof of scribes recycling legalese across vows and vendettas. One overworked clerk even used the same template for a horse sale contract, accidentally ending with eternally yours in pasture. You missed the papyrus with distilled water, its fibers expanding like fingertips after desert rain. The scribe's hidden colophon emerges, a tiny scorpion doodle signing his work. Tax records from Merv identify him as Babak the Legible. A calligrapher later sued for adding romantic flourishes to tax audits. His defense: numbers deserve sonnets too. Thread counts expose the sheet's origin: Alexandrian hemp, not local mulberry. Stolen stationery, a gift from a competing caravan. Ground scans show faint indigo fingerprints along the edge, likely the driver's grip during sandstorm prayers. Sweat leached into the fibers, salt crystallizing into a topographic map of his palm. Rebuilding the timeline hurts. He commissioned the love letter after reaching Dunhuang's markets, ink barely dry before turning home. The divorce draft followed 3 days later, scribbled during a botched oasis affair. By the time he paid the scribe's fee, his heart had changed, but not his budget. Watermark analysis suggests he reused a sheet from his own inventory, discount papyrus prone to fungal blooms. Those spreading brown marks aren't age, they're mold from being tucked against his sweat-damp tunic. 5 weeks riding Bactrian cattle left spores in every crease. You photograph the superimposed texts, layers shining under UV like geological strata. Topsoil, unearned compliments. Subsoil, bureaucratic ire. Bedrock, sheep pee. Visitors will debate whether it's tragic or comic, never grasping that 9th century logistics allowed both. When you rehouse the letter, a common seed falls from its folds, dating scan inconclusive. Modern or medieval, you place it in the vial anyway. Some truths only sprout in retrospect. The common seed's stale musk still clings to your gloves as you face the next catastrophe, a 9th century manuscript half dissolved in floodwater. Pages stick together like dead moths, dissolved ink pooling in the conservatory's drainage tray. Chinese monks first used green tea baths to halt mold, a trick modern labs confirmed stops spore growth by 23%. You count 19 sheets, their once bold edicts now blurry as drunk calligraphy. 3 interns arrive with steaming kettles, young scholars debating whether oolong's pH differs from longjing. Just dump the cheap stuff, you mutter, watching supermarket grade leaves swirl into vats. A 2014 study proved Lipton works, as well as Ming Dynasty silver tips, much to traditionalists' horror. The room smells like a diner's breakfast special Earl Grey, battling the manuscript's wet dog stench. Emergency protocols demand 45-minute soaks, but you cheat, dunking each folio for precisely 38. Patience wears thinner than rice paper when facing a chancellor's moldy tantrum. Infrared reveals the author railing against imperial silk taxes, each character an angry brushstroke. Faint underlines suggest a second reader agreed, until water bloated the fibers into Rorschach blots. Your sponge swipes at a stubborn stain, its edges resisting even after 8 tea rinses. A lab tech jokes about switching to espresso for stubborn cases. No laugh escapes you. This blotch guards a secret, an erased phrase where emperor should be. Night shift gossip claims a conservator once found a treasonous joke in such a smudge. But records vanished with her pension. Historical accounts praise tease tannins for saving the Song dynasty's flooded libraries, though nobody mentions the headaches. Monks brewed gallons until their hands shook, caffeine jitters cracking delicate scrolls. You check today's mixture, oversteeped and bitter enough to stripe a zebra. Someone definitely used this batch for breakfast first. The salty tang of yesterday's noodles still lingers. Peeling apart sheets feels like diffusing bombs, tweezers hovering over waterlogged threats. A misplaced tug, and the Chancellor's critique of imperial wine tariffs becomes confetti. Your breath steadies, channeling that intern who stabilized Black Saturday's fire-damaged psalms. Bureaucratic anger proves fragile, surviving wars, but not a burst pipe. Under UV light, the tea's magic erupts. Mold colonies retreat like sacked cities, tannins bricking up their organic ramparts. 800 years ago, a monk spilled his lunchtime brew onto a sutra, accidentally inventing preservation science. You wonder if he kept his job or was demoted to latrine duty for innovation. The real challenge emerges at midnight, translating reforms through tea-stained gaps. A phrase about peasant levies becomes pleasant leeches where ink bled. Historians still argue whether fiscal policy or parasites plagued the Yangtze Delta more. You insert a translator's note because future PhDs will fistfight over this semicolon. A hidden layer surfaces at last, scrawled vertically in the sheet's watermark shadows. The Chancellor's true grievance survives here. His Majesty's new concubine costs 6,000 silk bolts monthly, yet complains about tapestries itching her feet. Power dynamics echo through the censorship, a bureaucrat's petty burn outliving his dynasty. Your brush dabs methylcellulose onto the worst holes, synthetic sweat patching medieval rage. Someone hung this document in a rice paper courtyard until monsoon rains smuggled truth through palace cracks. The repaired folio returns to its case, still faintly reeking of bergamot. As dawn breaks, you find a surprise in the drainage tray, a submerged tea bag from 2009. Caffeine-free chamomile, the ultimate archival betrayal. Your laughter startles the janitor, both of you unsure whether this crime deserves reporting. History, like tea, only reveals its strength in hot water. The pomegranate's split heart bleeds into your vat, seeds bobbing like lava bubbles in a wood-fired cauldron. Arab dye-makers swore boiling rinds produced blood that never pales, though you suspect their sales pitch involved more poetry than chemistry. A faded mercantile ledger from Abbasid markets lists 37 red sources, crushed beetle shells, outselling pomegranate 12-1. Your sleeve dips too close, the steam imprinting a pink crescent that'll outlive your career. 3 apprentices argue over firewood, olive logs versus date palms for sustained heat. Use the camel dung, you snap, half joking, until someone actually fetches dried patties. The stench rivals yesterday's tea-stained manuscript fiasco. But 8th century recipes did recommend dung-fueled kilns. Modern recreations prove dung burns slower, locking in dye potency through even smolder. You mentally file this under facts to omit at dinner parties. Cochineal beetles dominated the trade for centuries, their crimson extract worth triple its weight in silver. Yet Byzantine scrolls hint at a short-lived pomegranate monopoly around 812 CE, until smugglers undercut prices with bug-based batches. Historians still argue whether the shift was economic or aesthetic. Did beetle red truly outshine fruit dyes, or just rich men's whims? Your money's on tariffs. Always tariffs. The mash thickens into syrup, globs catching on your ladle like molten garnets. A splatter hits your notes, transforming test 7. Unsatisfactory fade rate into a Rorschach rose. 3 weeks wasted because some caliph's wife preferred blushes matching her sunrise harem silks. You picture her complaining about peasant hues, while artisans boiled vats in flea-ridden courtyards. Midday sun reveals the truth. Swatch tests pinned to cedar planks show pomegranates crimson darkening under UV rays, a reverse fade that baffled 1980s conservators. Modern labs blame molecular interactions with cellulose. But you side with the Cairo dyer who called it Allah's joke on impatient scholars. Your newest batch outshines cochineal samples, their beetle-born reds dulling like old lipstick. Disaster brews at the chloride rinse stage. A distracted intern uses well water instead of distilled minerals, clumping the dye into lumpy jam. The team debates salvaging it as rouge for palace reconstructions. Your glare kills the idea. Reenactors already mock us for that squid ink eyeliner incident. No need to supply medieval acne cream. Jokes too. Sifu Lao's handbook saved the day in 1023. His moonlit straining method, removing sediment with woven grass filters. You replicate it under lead floods, the amber liquid dripping cleaner with each pass. 3 hours later, your forearms ache from squeezing pulp sacks, a pain shared by every dyer since the Silk Road's peak. At least camel dung smoke masks the muscle burn. The final test comes at twilight. You daub the dye onto fresh paper, its fibers drinking the red like drought-starved soil. Museum floodlights simulate centuries of sunlight. Beetle samples bleach within minutes, but the pomegranate stain deepens hour by hour, a vampire hue thriving in illumination. Someone mutters about witchcraft. You counter with spectrophotometer readings, but honestly, the numbers feel like alchemy either way. That intern's blunder yields an accidental triumph. Mineral-contaminated batches develop marbled veins when dried on reed screens, royal stationaries. Exclusive pattern now demystified. 800 years ago, a Damascus apprentice likely hid similar mistakes under gilded trim. You save 12 sheets as limited editions. Curators adore that faux heritage marketing ploy. Packing up, you spot the sleeve stain glowing under blacklight, a neon brand marking you as dye maker kin. Morning's mistake will linger through 50 washes. Same as the Baghdadi artist who signed robes with hidden pomegranate signatures. The vat gets emptied onto a juniper shrub, its crimson seeping into roots that'll blush pink come spring. The campfire's smoke coils around your ink pot, its pine resin tang mingling with the bard's raspberry wine breath. He spits a phrase about glacier spirits. You scribble furiously, knowing his vowels shift like desert sands between tellings. 30 generations of hooves, pounding steppe grass live in his throat. Yet he eyes your paper like it's poisoned honey. Words should freeze in air, not squat on dead trees, he grumbles, stabbing the fire with an antler poker. You've heard this song before, literally. His ballad about snow leopards mating on Nowruz has 3 conflicting verses, tonight alone. Historians confirm nomadic confessions were etched on birch bark or sheep scapulae, materials meant to rot as memories evolved. Your host's ancestors used fermented mares, milk to preserve battle oaths. though scholars still debate whether that was ritual or a desperate attempt to mask awful ink. The reek of curdled lactose haunts every museum's Central Asian collection. A girl offers horsetail broth in a lacquered bowl, its steam fogging your spectacles. The bard resumes his tale, slower now, shaping each syllable like a pastry crimp. You mimic his pauses with widened line breaks, 3 finger widths for a warrior's hesitation, thumb length for a weeping spirit's sigh. Modern linguists call this prosodic spacing. You call it note-taking by muscle memory. By dawn, your quill hand cramps into a claw. The chieftain inspects your work, his calloused thumb smearing a stanza about stolen reindeer. This says the shaman flew west, he growls. But last moon, the flight was east toward Polaris. You shrug, pointing to the gap between verses. Perhaps he changed direction. The joke lands like a lead falcon. 3 hunters snort into their fermented curds. Disaster strikes when the bard forgets a clan's patron's spirit mid-story, his hoarse voice skidding like a sled on ice. You pause, quill hovering, as he hums 5 notes to stall. Tradition demands improvisation. His solution, a subplot about spirit wolves breeding with northern lights. Historians still argue whether these gap myths were intentional or creative panic. Your wrist aches from chronicling plausible deniability. The real gold emerges during smoke breaks. An elder whispers how her great-grandmother encoded pasture maps in lullabies, melodic peaks indicating mountain passes. You jot this in the margin, adding a tiny doodle of singing yurts. Academic journals would dismiss it as folklore. But last year's LEDAR scans matched her descant directions to buried petroglyphs. The chief catches you smiling. Laugh at our ghosts, scribe. You quickly ink a respectful squiggle. Moonlight exposes the paper's weakness. Condensation warps the sheet, stretching the bard's epic into surrealist verse. He peers at the bloated glyphs. See, your letters mutate like campfire shadows. A valid point, if you ignore how his story added 7 new heroes since supper. You sacrifice your last clean folio to transcribe the definitive version, knowing it'll diverge by breakfast. The bard's teenage apprentice watches you work, her fingers mimicking your quill flicks. She's memorized 12,000 couplets, yet freezes when you offer parchment. What if someone reads it wrong? Her tremor mirrors 9th century Buddhists fearing misunderstood sutras. You hand her the pen. She draws a wolf howl in turquoise ink, its tail becoming a comet streak. The bard nods approval. Better. No lies in pictures. Dawn brings departure rituals. The chief demands your notes be buried with a dead stallion, to let words gallop freely in afterlife meadows. You surrender the worst-smelling pages, those stained by rogue curd splatters. Your pack stays slyly heavier. 3 elders bless the hidden scroll tube, while blessing your saddle with discreet hexmark stitches. Fair trade, riding south, you replay the bard's final warning. Paper is a jealous lover. It steals memories from breath. Yet, As wind unspools your stolen transcription, a realization hits. His tale of glacier spirits now includes your smudged fingerprint. A new character in THE Chinese letter rolled telling. Somewhere, a future bard will chant of the ink-handed ghost who documented his own haunting. You hum a mare's milk ditty, certain your quill just became part of the oral tradition. The imperial checkpoint reeks of boiled yak glue, a stench even your stolen curd pages can't overpower. Guards unroll decrees on flimsy paper, their iron seals punching through fibers like axe heads. You mimic the crowd's bow, chin grazing dust that'll later stick to fresh ink. 37 wax blobs glint ahead, each stamped by a bureaucrat who probably died mid-signature. History remembers Empress Wu's land reforms as revolutionary, forcing nobles to share fallow fields with peasants. The parchment before you cracks at the edges, its words as fragile as the peace they promise. A clerk dips his brush. Name and business. You give the standard lie. Pilgrim seeking mountain shrines. His snort suggests you're the 17th pilgrim this morning. The decree's peony-infused seals release a floral rot, summer blooms preserved in bureaucratic amber. Archivists recently found similar waxes containing horse sweat and, controversially, powdered nitzel for binding strength. You hold your breath while he stamps your pass. Disaster strikes when a mule bucks, overturning an ink pot across the decree's key claws. Guards scramble, spreading the stain like a wound. Still valid, the captain barks. Sovereign's words outlive spills. Convenient, considering half the text now resembles a squid's suicide note. Historians still argue whether these reforms improved crop yields or just generated tax paperwork. You count 12 peasants swapping turnips behind an official's back, their barter louder than any edict. A girl tugs your sleeve, offering original duplication services. Her portfolio includes smudged copies of yesterday's weather reports. You decline, then spot her reed pen's nib. Carved from a tiger's whisker, its flex outshines palace stationery bureau stock. She winks. Father traps them near the royal tombs, guard cats gone lazy. The nib glides across your notebook, recording how 5th century tax dodgers hid rice in hollow seals. Sunset brings quieter absurdities. A magistrate's courier arrives drunk, his saddlebags spilling mismatched decrees. Soldiers kick them like autumn leaves. You pocket one sheet stamped urgent, goose migration routes. The new tax code references non-existent provinces, cartographers, inside joke, or dyslexic typesetter. Either way, it's headed for the scholars' debate hall, and your unauthorized collection. Night falls on a farcical finale. Officials light signal fires using outdated edicts, the Empress's face blackening in the flames. Your campfire stew bubbles as you reread today's haul. No two decrees match, amendments contradicting amendments, exemptions canceling permits. Yet in the ash, you spot a half-jarbled phrase: protect the seeds entrusted by heaven. For a breath, policy transcends parchment. Dawn finds you tracing a seal's last fragment, its peony silhouette clinging to fibers like a ghost. Somewhere, a farmer plants beans between the lines of a buried scroll. Words as fertilizer, you hum that mare's milk tune again, wondering what hybrid truths will sprout come spring. You kneel in the caravan master's tent, your revised map weighted with rusted nails at each corner. Outside, drivers argue over a 53rd crow's foot inked on today's route. Bandits here now, a courier explains, jabbing at the X-shaped symbol. His finger leaves a grease stain over cotton, a city swallowed by dunes 3 harvests back. The Silk Road's arteries harden like old glue, each dead end marked before the bloodshed dries. Sandalwood smoke can't mask the reek of panic sweat. Someone's using camel fat candles to preserve their maps. An innovation you'd admire if the stench weren't curdling your tea. Trade permits from Kashgar, a rider announces, flinging oilcloth packets into the tent. Unrolled, they're useless, showing mountain passes that collapsed during last winter's quakes. A muleteer snorts, better kindling than guidance. You trade 3 arrowheads for a jar of fermented squid ink, apparently looted from a nautical-themed checkpoint. Dipping your reed pen feels blasphemous, but desperate cartographers blend whatever flows. The caravan master leans in. Draw the new lake as a mirage, he insists. Real water demoralizes more than thirst. Historians still argue whether drought-starved towns intentionally mislabeled oases to trap rivals. Midnight brings a sandstorm's first whispers. Scouts rush to secure papers under felt blankets. Early attempts crumbled during damp gusts. A rookie tries weighting sheets with his mother's jade hairpin. It snaps, releasing decade-old scalp oils that repel ink. Your laughter draws glares until he flings a sand-crusted ledger at your head. The storm's eye passes as traders tally losses. A silk merchant finds his route maps fused into a single pulp brick, routes to Aleppo and Zion, now inseparable. Poetic, someone mutters. All roads lead to bankruptcy. You pocket a fragment showing Yarkand's old river delta, its bends now myths sung to spooked camels. Dawn reveals crow's feet, vandalized by wind-blown grit. A boy swears he saw the symbols rearrange into bird tracks, omens of some winged empire rising. You hum noncommittally while repainting the 53rd dead end. Yesterday's shortcut now hosts a warlord's tax booth, his guards demanding payment in toenail clippings and zodiac secrets. Your hand cramps around a smuggled Tukarian water table. The data's thrilling. 8 renegade wells dug beyond imperial permits. But you pause at the margin note. Beware cartographers who map by starlight their north shifts with each lover's promise. The ink smells of fermented apples and poor life choices. An argument erupts over lunch. Should the crow's foot face left or right when marking collapsed bridges? Traditionalists cite 8th century manuals. Younger scouts mimic the wind's arbitrary cruelty. Compromise comes via a demented doodle. The symbol now wears a little hat. For dignity, explains its creator, a scribe who once charmed empress woos third least favorite concubine. By twilight, the map resembles a battlefield. Erasure scars pockmark old fortresses. Wine stains bloat rivers beyond recognition. You press a date cake into the worst tier, fig syrup gluing Samarkand back together. Someone's donkey eats a corner labeled Hormuz. No one stops it. Your final edition. A tiny dune beetle near Dunhuang, its legs tracing safer paths than your ink ever could. The caravan master nods approval. Life finds a way, or whatever Confucius muttered after his third cup. Lanterns flicker as writers fold the map into secrecy, creased knowledge passed like contraband. 53 crows' feet puncture the parchment, each talon holding stories too dry for tears. The night after mapping crows' feet feels different. Your ink-stained hands, now clutching star charts older than the Gobi's dunes. You squint at a comet's path from Tang dynasty records. Its once precise trajectory now warped as the paper fibers expanded. 7th century astronomers tracked this celestial guest for 73 nights, their bamboo pens pricking holes through folios to mark its course. Some punctures align with modern calculations. Others, well, a sticky residue clings to the chart's corner. Rumor says Cotton's scholars used fermented peach juice to stabilize star maps, though you're pretty sure that's just someone's grandma's moonshine recipe. The scent triggers a sneeze, launching a fly that's been fossilized in the folio's layers. Its final flight path now mirrors the comet's drunkest zigzag. Historians still argue whether monks enlarged constellations intentionally. Holy geometry hidden in the pulp swell. You flatten the sheet against a rock, but Andromeda's arm now stretches to grip Ursa Major's tail. Below, a margin note explains. Dip charts in well water during Scorpios rise to prevent fiber betrayal. Too late for that, your oil lamp reveals hidden notes, tiny numbers in vermilion ink. 8th century astronomers logged star brightness using crushed firefly abdomens, a method abandoned when summer interns kept eating the luminescent paste. Modern scholars dismiss this as myth. You lick the page experimentally. Regret follows. Wind riffles the chart's edges, a sound like ghosts arguing over cosine functions. You hold the sheet skyward, the Big Dipper's stars aligning through paper pores stretched by humidity. Or maybe poor storage. Either way, the constellation now resembles a camel's reins, complete with imaginary buckles glinting near Vega. A sand grain lodged in Cygnus irritates you beyond reason. Digging it out tears the swan's wing, revealing a prayer for clear skies in Sogdian script. Devotion and astronomy sharing pulp, the original STEM collaboration. Your thumb smudges the plea, leaving Orion's bowstring permanently out of tune. Dawn creeps in the chart's cobalt inks, fading to match the washed-out sky. You fold it carefully, knowing those stretched fibers will never rebound. Somewhere, a modern scholar screams into a telescope, unaware their data's ancestors were warped by monsoon season. The desert accepts this betrayal without comment, stars dimming as camels begin their groaning march east. Fluorescent light buzzes overhead, its harsh glare flattening the 8th century sheet's texture into something clinical. Your latex-gloved fingers hover, too practiced to touch, across the lab. A vat bubbles with mulberry pulp and rainwater, every ingredient logged in a Tang dynasty's inventory scroll. Except the interns swapped filtered water for distilled. Historians will never know. The hydraulic press hisses, modern steel mimicking river-worn stones. You adjust the pressure by 3 psi. Last week's batch tore like wet tissue. A grad student claims 9th century monks hummed in B-flat during pressing. Insists it changed fiber alignment. The sound system plays a dubstep remix of Gregorian chants instead. Fog drifts from the cooling system, your breath visible as you lift the new sheet. Tiny hairs still cling to its surface. Mulberry barks stubborn airs. Under magnification, the fibers crosshatch like Silk Road trade routes. Someone jokes about adding nano-ink GPS dots. You pretend not to consider it. Midnight coffee meets Dunhuang cave air. Conservators sealed the original manuscript in argon gas last Tuesday. A sticky note on the quarantine chamber reads, "Do not lick again. The offender's disciplinary hearing is tomorrow." Your tongue still tastes faintly of firefly glaze. Rain taps the skylight, each droplet warping the fluorescent sun. The replicated sheet quivers on its drying rack, fibers expanding at 93% humidity. 8th century curators used salt-packed closets. You've got a dehumidifier from Amazon Prime. Progress. A debate for better minds. Historians still argue whether true replication requires period-accurate dust. Your lab coat's pocket holds a vial of Gobi sand collected illegally during a conference trip. The intern sneezes, scattering 3 dynasties worth of grit across the sterile floor. Oops, 32 minutes until deadline. The sheet's watermark glows under UV, lotus roots ghosting beneath synthetic fibers. Original artisans used wire molds stolen from a blacksmith's scrap pile. Yours were 3D printed in Zurich. Authenticity's a spectrum, and you're colorblind. Fog thickens, the air tasting of wet pulp and Wi-Fi routers. You switch off the lamp. In the sudden dark, the sheet sighs, its fibers creaking like a camel caravan's weathered reins. Dawn bleeds through the blinds, another replication complete. Another failure. A perfect echo, the fluorescent light dims, its hum softening into the laboratory silence. Your gloves rest now, fingers tracing the air above paper that breathes like centuries-old skin. Somewhere, a dehumidifier thrums, a steady pulse beneath rain's whispered rhythm on glass. They'll call this replication flawed, too much modern grit in its marrow. You know better. Every imperfection hums a bridge between then and now. Dawn blushes through dust-streaked windows. The sheet lies quiet fibers, interwoven like stories passed through sleepless hands. Ancient monks pressed pulp under constellations long faded. You dry paper beneath lead stars, different skies, same hunger to make things endure. A laugh escapes, soft as mulberry pulp settling. Let historians quarrel over purity. These fingerprints, yours and theirs, blur across time's ledger. The final droplet falls, echoes in an empty beaker. You switch off the playback, Gregorian dubstep, dissolving into the hush. Somewhere, camels tread dream sands beyond the lab's chill. Somewhere, fresh bark steeps. Rest now. The work continues, always in half-light. Perfection is tomorrow's problem. Tonight, let it simply exist. Fades to breath-like silence,